Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Michael Briody. I'm a foreign exchange and crypto market specialist here at Bloomberg. Happy to be joined today by John Wu, president of Ava Labs. John, thanks for joining today.
Michael, it's a pleasure. Good to see you again.
Always good to see you again. John and I catch up at several of the crypto events, and John is a regular at Bloomberg. We catch up in the office. John does a lot of spends a lot of time on Bloomberg TV, really making an effort to educate the community in this space. So really appreciate that, John, quite a bit.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. I mean, I come from the world of traditional finance originally, so I can bridge the gap, and I love doing that.
Definitely useful. Well, before we dive into specifics here, because I know we got a handful of questions that you and I went through, could you give us a glimpse, into Ava Labs, Avalanche, and what you guys are working on?
Sure. So Ava Labs is the people and the team, the software and services company. That we are a builder on top of Avalanche. Avalanche is the permissionless protocol. It's governed by a foundation separate from Ava Labs. We build a lot of different tools, and we're like any other builder. We're helping populate the ecosystem on Avalanche. One of the things that distinguishes Ava Labs from perhaps other blockchain crypto companies is we want to help developers in traditional native crypto, but we have a real mission and a purpose also to bring bring the technology of blockchain to traditional finance and help rewire the financial services industry, as well as other enterprises beyond just financial services. So we want to bring real world utility to the blockchain.
That's great. There's been a lot of discussion today on today's event on tokenization of assets. And recently, Avalanche Foundation launched a program called Avalanche Vista to drive that development of tokenized assets. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Sure. So in the last two cycles, the concept of tokenization has come in and out, and as far as it relates to real world assets. I say the 2017-18 cycle, call it, the concept of the ICO turned into STO, security token offerings, where people are trying to figure out the mechanics behind creating a compliant solution with the right ATS licenses and the right broker dealer, et cetera, and the right MTLs for moving value around. So that was like the first iteration when people were trying to figure out if the technology can embed some of the regulatory requirements and whether mechanically it will work. The previous cycle, call it the 2020, 21, 22-ish period, where we started seeing real good product, call it, like real players, the big houses like, KKR trying to tokenize alternatives, Apollo, all of these traditional private equity firms trying to tokenize their illiquid securities or funds and make it more accessible to accredited investors. So products started coming around, the supply side, good, basically tokenized real world assets. And that's continued, but it's really growing even faster now in this cycle, if you could consider this the third cycle in our conversation. But what is still missing is, frankly, the demand side of the equation. So there's demand for the technology and building and creating assets on blockchains. But in terms of people using the tokenized assets in a normal function, it's still a bit lagging. And frankly, that is because I think people want regulatory clarity. So in order to continue the momentum of people exploring on the blockchain, the Vista program was basically launched. It's about a $50 million program to, with partners, help purchase tokenized assets to create some of the demand side so that the supply side can continue to grow. And it's designed basically to facilitate more speed and scalability and customizable assets by giving them liquidity and giving access to more people.
Yeah, is it just regulation, or is there some trust that needs to be built there as well?
That's a great point. I think they go hand in hand. There is trust because there is other issues besides certainty and regulation. There's also, in traditional native crypto, there's always been a lot of hacks and people don't really know what to make of it. Also, a lot of people don't like to be early adopters. They want to see a track record of success in this before they take a leap of faith. True. So I think what you're going to see, though, is that there is a value proposition because Bain has done a nice note on this and highlighted how big the, call it the the potential assets under management can be if accredited and in the private wealth space, if they all went direct into some of the assets that could be tokenized. And that's a large number. So going forward, I think if they can save people money by going direct, this will take off.
You mentioned in a statement when you and I spoke previously, asset tokenization isn't just the future of capital markets. It's a critical driver of the present. Can you just give us a little more detail on that?
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing real tokenization. I mean, stablecoins. I think there's already product market fit there in stablecoins. I think the stablecoin AUM is already up to 150 billion plus. You have firms like PayPal creating stablecoins. You have banks like ANZ that work with Ava Labs to create all types of stablecoins, not just in USD, but in Asian fiat. Then you have money market funds, BlackRock, Franklin Templeton tokenizing. So those are actually all here. But you're also seeing now other alternatives, whether it's the Paxos Gold, Diamonds, the Diamond Standard is a company that's trying to create diamond basically tokenized diamonds on chain. Then you also have whiskey and wine, other projects, but in other unusual products that people may not always get access to on the individual level, things like homiums creating home equity loans. There's reinsurance products, and don't forget the proof of concepts and the trials that Ava Labs have been working with in terms of Apollo, JP Morgan, Citi, exploring the tokenization of alternatives.
So can you elaborate a little bit on that? You mentioned a lot of different tokenized products there. What is Avalanche? What are they doing to facilitate this tokenization of real world assets?
So Ava Labs is a team helping people or firms, blue chip firms now, build on top of Avalanche. And what they're doing is they're using the efficiency of a blockchain solution in order to either settle faster, because some of the characteristics of Avalanche that are unique and make it very interesting to a lot of financial services firms is one, the consensus protocol allows instant finality. So settlement can happen really quickly. Another thing that Ava Labs has done is create partnerships on chain for players who have actually MTL licenses, for people who have ATSs, qualified custodians, so that when Apollo wants to deploy something on top of Avalanche, the nature of permissionless blockchains is that they're composable. So all those partners are already there, and it's a comfortable environment for a regulated entity to be able to plug into the necessary licenses that's already on chain. Those are examples of why this is actually all happening right now. The third thing I think I should mention is the fact that Avalanche was created in a way where everyone, meaning developers, can create their own self-managed blockchain customized to their specific needs. So if you're a financial services firm, you have to embed compliance and regulation into the code. They can do that. But if you're a gaming company and you have different requirements and you need fast, smooth transactions and less so in terms of regulations, you can customize a blockchain to your own liking that way. So those are the three things I think that Ava Labs and Avalanche stand out.
Super interesting. I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit, because you and I had a conversation in the past, and I really love the way you frame something. And I've used it several times since we spoke. Use the idea of royalty points and branding. And in other words, we use the phrase real world use case versus real world assets. So can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. So it's fascinating. So this year, what we're actually seeing is what I call, it's also RWA, but real world activity. So tokenizing your daily activities and providing you access to loyalty points or in-game gaming, in-game assets trade a lot in the traditional, a single server world in a lot of these games, Axis, guns, whatever, shields, all these, fantasy games. So now that is being put on a blockchain, and then the facilitation of the marketplace for those in-game assets is so much easier when you can do it on a blockchain. So what we're seeing is actually more than just that. We're also seeing, in the space, there's actually literally there's a company out there, Helium. If you live in SF, New York, or Miami, you probably know about this. So basically, it's basically allowing you to buy a router, put it into your normal router, and then all of a sudden you're part of a mesh network, and you can share your excess capacity and receive Homium tokens. And then even better, you can swap that into a mobile service. And because by giving up your excess broadband, you actually can buy your mobile, service for almost free. So basically, by giving up some of your excess broadband, you get a service back for yourself. So that's what I mean by people are coming up with creative ways to now tokenize effectively real world activity and provide value to individual users.
That's really creative, and I'm actually surprised that
Well,
that's not
unfortunately, that's
already.
not on Avalanche, but there's another one that's coming on Avalanche. It's not announced yet, so I can't give it away. But they have an even, I think, cooler solution, again, to basically tokenize real world activity and provide value to individual users.
Yeah, I think you just gave another. People are going to start using RWA a little bit differently now, but it
Yeah,
makes
there's
it so
two
much faster.
RWAs. One is tokenizing value, real world assets, moving the right of ownership from off chain to on chain, and then RWA, real world activity, tokenizing activity, again, through loyalty, through use cases, through sharing economy, and putting that on chain to provide value for individuals and bring more people into the ecosystem.
Yeah, it's all about client experience, right? Once they adopt that and they feel more comfortable with it,
That's
I
right.
think it will be adopted much quicker. So one of the things that we need to talk about, obviously, one of the hottest topics in finance this year was the Bitcoin and Ethereum. Well, it was Bitcoin ETF today. All of a sudden, I mean, perfect timing of this event. The Ethereum ETF. Does Avalanche have any tokenized ETF projects on right now?
Are there tokenized ETFs, like index related type things, in
Yeah.
a tokenized form on Avalanche?
Yeah.
Um, so you're saying like,
Yeah, so how does
have
Avalanche plan to collaborate with financial institutions, with these
oh
type
yeah,
of
I mean we
tokenizations?
are working with all the traditional financial institutions who are thinking about tokenizing various assets and maybe putting them into a index. There's no specific like ETF like thing that is traded on Avalanche, but I can say that pretty soon there will be more. There's definitely a lot of collaboration going on, and I'm hoping pretty soon that some of these proof of concepts will turn into an actual thing that I can announce and talk about.
Look forward to that. So let's get back to real world assets, not real world activities. I actually had to write that down. What are some of the major challenges Avalanche has encountered or foresee in the tokenization of real world assets, and what strategies potentially are being implemented to address these challenges?
Yeah, so we already talked about one, which is a really a big one, frankly. As we said, there's now supply side, meaning there are assets that are being tokenized, and there are real demand for the technology or to use the technology, but demand for those assets is still waning. So that's really one challenge, and I think that's a socialization effort, a certainty in regulation, and also just like you said, trust with the actual
Yeah.
blockchain in terms of
How,
security. So I think that is one. There's also some other ones, frankly. UI, UX in the space needs to probably improve for both users as well as developers. I think those crypto native that we're very comfortable with using existing tools and they may be a little bit clunky, but to us, it's like you're used to it. But if you want to go on the steep part of the adoption cycle and get the average person in here, you have to make that experience similar to a Schwab or Fidelity or E-Trade like experience if you want them to do that. So I think the UI, UX, a lot of crypto engineers are great engineers, but they're not necessarily great UI, UX. And that's something that needs to be addressed at some point. And obviously, not my forte, but clarity and regulation in various regions will also help.
Yeah, that's a difficult part too, with a global asset like this being regulated differently through so many different regions. But getting back to the original statement, how far away do you think we are of people being comfortable in this being implemented more mainstream? Is it years? Is it months?
I think the reality is it's one of those things where you can't really predict specific timing. But based on the cadence of people developing through proof of concepts, it's really building up. It's almost one of those things where it's not that much, and then it hits an inflection point. It seems like everyone does it. It's so you just have to figure out, you have to be there for that big inflection liftoff point, so to speak. I think we're getting closer to it, but I would be lying if I told you I knew exactly when. I don't think it's 5 years. I think it's somewhere shorter than that, 2 to 3 maybe, but I don't know exactly when.
Yeah, it feels like we're so close, and everyone that I speak to is they're really waiting for that regulatory clarity. And then, I think once there's more education out there, you do a great job of that. I think things will move quickly, but it's like there's one or two barriers that we need to break through first before everyone will kind of like really hit the gas here a little bit.
Yeah, that's right. And the other thing that's interesting is like I'm very surprised at the quality of the firms that are deploying, especially on Avalanche with Ava Labs. I mean, we're talking about Wellington, T. Rowe, Apollo. We talked about it earlier, JP Morgan, Citi. So these are like, world-class blue chip institutions, and they are deploying or building on the technology of blockchain with the help of Ava Labs. They're almost like just getting ready for it. So if you are in that area, you kind of have to also keep up with them, because when this demand suddenly inflects, if you're not there without the technology ready to go, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's really not a revolution. It's more of an evolution, right? And you're
Yeah,
not going to, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time.
yeah.
Getting back to, blockchain a little bit, many of us advocate for a multi-chain world.
Mm.
In your view, how do you envision Avalanche chain supporting and enhancing other chains to fortify this, overall massive blockchain ecosystem?
Well, Avalanche is already EVM compatible, so assets can move back and forth. People who code in Solidity can code on Avalanche, but also, there's projects of all backgrounds like Move and other ecosystems. They can launch what we call subnet, but it's really their self-managed um, blockchain on Avalanche very easily. So our thesis is that yes, we will have a multi-chain world, and we will be supporting whether it's Ethereum or any other large ones. That hopefully, Avalanche is one of those, and then making it fungible so that people can move around the Avalanche ecosystem, and other, layer ones can also be interoperable with Avalanche. So that's the way we think will attract multiple different types of projects from different types of chains in a fragmented ecosystem. Ultimately, history has it so that, I mean, look at anything, whether it's telcos, it comes down to now there's only three providers in the US, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, basically. When it was like 10, 15 years ago, there was so many, Sprint, all these different ones that are out there. You look at even, frankly, Amazon Web Services and cloud services, the hyperscalers. There's, in the US, there's, sure, there's 5 or 6, but really there's three. There's Amazon, there's Google, and there's Azure from Microsoft. So somehow market forces always lead to a cottage industry that narrows down to three, but they are interoperable. We remember the days, Michael, when you got surcharge, or it was really hard for you when you left. You had to roam outside of AT&T if you were an AT&T subscriber, and to pay for your Verizon, and either you didn't want to do it or it was too expensive, but it was just not very seamless. Today, it's like they're all seamless and interoperable very easily, and you don't even get charged more for it. So the same cycle will go through in
Really
terms
good
of
analogy, actually. Really
it
good
will go
analogy.
through this as well. Yeah,
I like that a lot. I'm definitely going to be using that.
awesome,
So
cool.
we'll
Just
talk
give me some
about,
credit.
please go ahead.
No, just give me some credit that I came
Always,
up with.
always, John, always.
Yes, thanks.
So look, when we talk about blockchain, we talked about trust earlier. What do we need to do, or just Ava Labs need to do, or us in general, to boost blockchain's reputation and just ensure better security, make people feel better about it?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I think you mentioned it earlier, continue to do a lot of education and work with different enterprises. But, Avalanche and Ava Labs has actually created what we call Spruce, which is a institutional DeFi um, call it subnet or self-managed blockchain on top of Avalanche. And the players who are working with us here are T. Rowe, Wellington, Wisdom Tree. All these players and then we have Aave and we have Trader Joe, which is a AMM, swap mechanism. So it's a valueless token, but all of these traditional financial services gets to see how a decentralized financial system gated only by accreditation and the regulatory requirements for traditional finance. They get to test it out and see how it works. So they test the benefits of on-chain finance in a controlled environment so that they can ultimately get to comfort levels. And that's also part of, it's not just like education Ava Labs people going out there and talking to them or creating advisor relationships. It's also actually working with them in these proof of concepts so they can see it firsthand.
Right. On these blockchains, and you could educate me here a little bit, is the speed and is it there? Are we ready to take on that many transactions and do that many different things on it? Is it there? Are we there yet?
So I don't think you're there if you're trying to do a New York Stock Exchange number of transactions, but in the early days, the value proposition of tokenizing these assets is really tokenizing illiquid assets that kind of already trade by appointment. And now you're just making a little bit more liquid. So it's not like the assets that are going on the chain right now, you don't really need the same throughput as you have on the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ, but you do need decent TPS. And I think we are there in terms of the TPS for these alternative assets.
Is AI getting in the way of some of this computing power that we're going to be needing to do all this stuff?
No, I don't think AI is getting in the way. At first, AI is going to be helpful to the entire blockchain space, just like every other industry is using the tools of AI. I think ultimately, though, in a little bit further down the line, blockchain will actually help AI in certain things and give it, provenance of where models are coming from, where the data is coming from, and tag those things appropriately. So people can have transparency and see where things are happening. In fact, we're working. The great thing about working at Ava Labs and supporting the Avalanche ecosystem is it is a platform. So you see all types of different verticals coming in, trying to figure out how to deploy on top of a distributed ledger as opposed to a single silo server in a traditional world. And there is definitely a movement in AI that is open source based. And those are the people trying to figure out solutions on the block in a Web3 world.
You mentioned other verticals there, John. Before we wrap up, what excites you the most moving forward? Like you mentioned gaming earlier, that's always been a hot topic. But what other verticals are not on people's radar right now?
So the loyalty royalty thing, as well as geographically speaking, in Asia, the adoption of the blockchain is happening much faster. I think the rules are a little bit clearer. The rules are different over there. So they are far more enterprises there, legitimate enterprises. We're working with Nexon, which is a publicly traded gaming company. Maple Story is one of their story games with literally over 200 million users. They're trying to create an enhanced version of it on the blockchain using the benefits of the blockchain. So again, it is kind of gaming, but there are also a lot of loyalty and royalty solutions happening. Last year, I think on this panel, I talked about SK. SK is a large conglomerate in Korea. They are putting their entire 24 million and hundreds of thousands of merchants full loyalty program on a blockchain. And I think we've seen already over 300,000 or 400,000 people use the blockchain-enabled wallet. Still far from the 24 million, but they've already seen better engagement and frankly, newer users willing to use the SK, it's called OK Cash Loyalty Royalty Program on a blockchain as opposed to the traditional wallet they have.
Yeah, it seems like royalty points and that type of branding is like, it's like the blockchain is a perfect vehicle for all that stuff that you and I spoke about in the past.
Well, it is because we're working with some brands too. And these brands basically feel like, you know what? The blockchain solution with a good wallet is actually a great CRM tool. And they get visibility into their own clients, effectively their own users. And the perfect example is like Mattel said once, like once we sell a Barbie doll off a Walmart shelf, we lose all touch with that client, and effectively you have to reacquire that client for the movie when the movie comes out via whether it's Google or television ads or Facebook feeds, whatever it is, they have to reacquire those customers. But if they can stay in touch with those clients, right? If you have a QR code or something and you put that on a blockchain and enable that user to continue to interact, maybe you can give them loyalty or something to give them advanced ticketing, and they can have it even cheaper. I mean, we're working with, and the people in the US know festivals like Coachella. Coachella is owned by the Anschutz Group, and they own a whole bunch of festivals and concerts. So what they're doing is, if you buy an NFT-enabled ticket through them for Coachella, you don't have to do it. You can do a normal path. Then you can do things at the concert, and they have incentives for you to do certain things and make it gamified so it's fun when you're at the concert. And then when they have the next festival, they're able to get in touch with you and give you early access to tickets or to other things. Or you can trade in your points and not go to things and get rewarded for it, and I guess in cash or something for someone else. So they are absolutely trying to figure out solutions to basically save themselves from advertising.
It's amazing. I tell you what, looking at it through that lens, it almost feels like, well, maybe more so in the United States, that it could be the corporate sector that actually drives more blockchain use than the actual financial sector.
Yeah, because there are fewer rules right now. So I think the corporate sector will drive people or users, but the value, because of the size of the US financial system, is where the value will come on chain, but the users will come on chain because of the corporate sector.
And the users won't even know what rails they're working on, right? Because it's just
that's the ultimate goal here. Obviously, these rails, a part of it is really to the average user not that sexy, because what you're doing is benefiting the corporation with basically lower costs and automated workflow, so you don't have to be as cumbersome in old servers and too many, and the friction that's created by everyone having their own different systems.
I hope you and I get a chance to have this conversation again next year, because it'll be really interesting to see how things evolve in 12 months' time. It seems like things are starting to reignite and things are starting to move fast again.
Yeah, likewise. I hope so. And we should definitely follow up on this and maybe even go deeper on a few things, because I feel like we covered a lot of things, but not as deep as we could in a half hour.
No, I agree. John, really excited about what you guys are building. I look forward to catching up again soon. Thanks so much for your time. Super insightful for me, and I hope for our audience as well. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
Likewise, Michael. Take care.
All the best.